Hi guys. Okay, so this next book I'm showing you is the Fountas and Pinnell Guided Reading. It's another nice big thick one. So this is a really great book for if you have just completed all of your FMPs and you're thinking, now what? And so this is a heavy read, but there's some really great parts that I thought that I would show you. And so if you look at the table of contents, it's divided up into understand the processing system. It's using your observations and assessments to form your groups and actually think about your guided instruction. Section 3 is about using high quality texts to support in your responsive teaching. And then section 4 is effective decision making within the guided reading lesson. And so the things that you're doing during the guided reading lesson. And then section 5 is about thinking, talking, reading, and writing in a classroom community. So thinking more holistically in that last section. So a few of the things that I wanted to show you in this book, which I thought is a really great chapter. So if you only want to start by reading one chapter, I would suggest this chapter. And it's number 5, Planning for Effective Guided Reading Lessons. And it just really makes you think a little bit differently about how to structure it, what you're saying and doing. And in fact, on page 103, I really like this visual because it outlines, sorry, everything's opposite on this. It really outlines under the blue part there, the action, what you're actually doing in your guided reading session, right? So it says action 1, assess the individual readers to form the groups. Action 2, select and analyze the characteristics of the text. Action 3, introduce the text. 4, observe and interact with students. 5, invite students to discuss the text. 6, make an immediate teaching point. 7, engage students in word work. 8, extend the lesson through writing or drawing about reading. And 9, reflect on the lesson and plan tomorrow's lesson. And so it really is responsive to the students that are in front of you in that moment, but it also gives you a structure to kind of follow of, okay, so I need to look at first analyzing the characteristics of the text and introducing it, and where to make those teaching points, and then thinking about doing that word work at the end of your guided reading section that would connect back to the reading that you're doing. On page 111, there's also this little visual, which is just the 10 text characteristics. We talked a little bit about those in the Jennifer Saravello book, but it again illustrates those and then defines what each of those mean. If you look at page 245, there is a sample of a guided reading schedule. And it also breaks down the thought around why. So in that guided reading schedule, it's not everyone gets equal amount of time, but it's considering that, some groups might need to meet 3 times a week. Other groups might need to meet 5 times a week, and maybe some 2. So it's really structuring your schedule based on student need and how we can close the gaps for, maybe those yellow zones. You actually spend more time with them because we would be sort of able to they might need just a little bit more explicit teaching before we get them into the green zone. And so it would be good if we spent a little bit more time with them to move them a little bit faster. Whereas your, green levels, you might only meet with twice a week, and maybe your reds, you meet with 3 times a week. If you did your FMPs and you got to the end and thought, I do not know how to score the errors that the student's making, and I'm not sure how to interpret that with the meaning, structure, and visual, which really is what is going to inform your teaching practice and what to do next. And these books are kind of useless if you don't score the MSV and then use that to interpret on the wheel those pieces that those students are missing. It's going to be hard to do that. So there is a whole section in here on scoring. On this page, it's on 259, and it gives you that sort of cheat sheet of how to actually, what you actually write above the words when they make an error or when they do a rerun or when they self-correct. And it's not that you need to write those symbols down, but understanding what parts you need to make note of and to act on for the next steps. On page 261, there's a little chart here that's great because it's a cheat sheet that just reminds you that it's between 95 and 100. That's their independent level. 90 and 94, which is their instructional, and then anything below 90% is too hard. On page 263, it outlines meaning, structure, and visual. It defines it, and then it has this little ask yourself. So for meaning, ask yourself, does the attempt make sense? For structure, does the attempt sound right? And then visual information, does the attempt look similar? And I always have this photocopied beside me when I'm coding because I like to code in the moment, and it is very hard to do that if you don't know what those mean. Yeah, so there is a whole lot more to this text, but I wanted to point out a few things to you that might help you dig a little bit deeper into some of your FMPs that you've already done and thinking about those next steps, connecting this back to the literacy continuum to help you select goals.